Greetings to you. This little clip is just to bring you up to date on what's actually going on in the conflict between Ukraine and the Russian Federation. It's a shame I have to do these clips really, because you should be getting this really from mainstream media. You should be getting this from defence correspondents in the newspapers, but you're not. Sadly, all you're getting is propaganda and the establishment view. You're getting the Washington view, and London always goes with the Washington view, the industrial military complex view, the NATO view. So you're not actually finding out what's really going on in the ground. And I'm going to stick just to the ground war at the moment. I don't want to go into the war in the air yet, because I don't have enough information, reliable information, to give you an update on that. But I'm working on that, trying to use what contacts I still have. Now, there's been a few changes. The anticipated freeze in the Ukraine didn't come about. So consequently, the central Ukraine is full of mud. It's a quagmire. It's very deep. And so Russian armour cannot move across frozen ground, as was the anticipation a few months ago, the probability of that. So they can't do that. They've got to wait till the drier weather, which will come probably in May or June. So they can't move their armour. Interestingly enough, though, the heroic defence by Ukrainian soldiers in Bakhmut has forestalled a little bit that particular Russian ambition because of the strength of the defence of what is basically a fortress town under siege. That doesn't actually change the strategy of the way this war is going. Wars are not won by siege mentality. If you want a historical perspective, you can look at perhaps the Franco-Prussian War, and you'll find Metz and the Sudan, the defence of Metz and Sudan. You lose your initiative in warfare, you lose your manoeuvrability in warfare if you are holed up. No matter how bravely and strongly defended a place is, they will eventually fall, as indeed will Bakhmut. The problem is, of course, it's an artillery war at the moment, and the Russians have significantly more artillery pieces and artillery rounds than the Ukraine, which is virtually run dry. The estimate of casualties now probably of Ukraine soldiers is in the region of 200,000. It could be more. We don't fully know, but it's round about that figure. And a country of the size of the Ukraine simply can't absorb those kind of losses, and they can't be replaced. So there's no cavalry coming galloping to the rescue. So the end game, sadly, is inevitable. The end game is inevitable. And that's due to Russian strategy of not being tied to political objectives when it comes to land wars, historically. So in the Great War, of course, the British stuck to Ypres because it was a political defence. We felt that we couldn't give up Ypres. It would have sent a very bad message. That was the feeling at the time. Nonsense, in my view. So we held the Ypres salient for the entire length of the war at the cost of many, many casualties. Probably to the tune of 250,000 casualties. Absolutely crazy. The Russians don't do that. The Russian job is to always destroy the enemy before they bother about what town they're going to hold, or what town they're going to take, or what territory they're going to take. And we saw that, of course, in the scorched earth policy post Borodino when they were fighting Napoleon. We saw that at Stalingrad. We saw that at Kursk. The Russians only fight armies. They don't hold ground. That comes later. So Bakhmut will eventually fall. It's just a question of numbers and weight of artillery. And that's how it is. And when the dry weather comes, they will trundle west, unless the West can be brought, or NATO can be brought to the negotiating table, which is going to be difficult. For twofold reasons. First, Washington has made it very, very clear they're not interested in peace negotiations. They have made that very clear, and they're unable to take that particular view because no Americans are dying. Ukrainians are dying, and so, frankly speaking, the American media or the American public don't care. They're not dying. It's the Ukrainians. Slightly immoral view, in my view, but there we are. So nothing can be done there to bring them to the table at the moment. Don't forget, in Vietnam, the Americans got out of Vietnam because they'd had 60,000 odd plus casualties, and the American public and the American mainstream media wouldn't put up with it any longer. So the Americans had to get out. Same with all their botched wars post-Vietnam, Afghanistan being the last shambles. And this is turning into a shambles as well. So what we need is a negotiated settlement, or there won't be any Ukrainian young men left. In fact, there won't be much of the Ukraine left. And we must get round a negotiating table and see if we can negotiate a peace through plebiscite to see where people want to live. Ethnic Russians can live under a Russian protectorate. The Ukrainians can live under their government. It'll have to be a different government because nobody's going to trust Zelensky backed by Washington any longer. So this is the way it's going to end up. It will end up like this. It has to. There is no other way. And the sooner we get round a table and negotiate peace, the better it will be for everyone. Europe, North America, Ukraine, the Russian Federation, better for everybody. If we face facts in the same way, if we'd faced facts in 1916, we could have saved 2 years of carnage from 1916 to 1918. If we'd got round what was an unwinnable, frankly an unwinnable war, we could have got round the table in 1916. It seems that all the decisions to get round a table are taken by people who are not in the firing line. So you have podgy armchair generals like Boris Johnson, who's never been in uniform in his life, doesn't know anything about geopolitical strategy or military at all. You have psychos like Elwood and various other guys. And of course, Washington is actually packed with psychos who can, of course, retreat if the war gets escalated any further and it really gets bad. They can go into their concrete bunker. So it has always been thus. People keep the war going in order to make money out of armaments. It's all about money. It's all about influence. And so it goes on at the cost of young men's lives. Been going on for generations, hundreds of years in point of fact. But we don't seem to have learnt anything. It is an absolute tragedy. All this could have been saved. It started in 1914. I saw something in the Daily Express the other day saying that the Russian Federation invasion of the Ukraine was completely out of the blue and unprovoked, which of course is absolute nonsense. It started in 2014 in the main when the elected government of the Ukraine was destabilised by the CIA and the build-up of arms came and the murder of ethnic Russians in the Donbass through artillery by some of the Azov battalions from the West. And that's one of the reasons that the Russian Federation mobilised was to protect their own people. And I've done this before. I've done videos on this before. The point I re-emphasise that now is we cannot sit round a table and discuss peace unless we face the truth of the matter. We all have to start telling the truth. And Angela Merkel made it very clear, and it hasn't been given any space on mainstream media in Great Britain. She said we weren't negotiating in good faith in Minsk. What we wanted to do was build up the forces in the Ukraine. So it was fake. They told that. So the Russians are saying, we'd like to negotiate a peace, but with whom do we negotiate? We can't trust anybody. It seems to me that the only way that this could possibly end is by a total Russian Federation victory, and they call the shots. And it didn't have to be this way. It didn't have to be this way. A year ago, we could have sat down and said, look, let's sort it out. What do the Russian Federation want? They want a militarily neutral Ukraine. They don't want bioweapons storage. They don't want boots on the ground. They don't want American missiles. They don't want Ukraine to be a member of NATO. So let's have some truth in the matter. Let's look at the Donbass and let's look at the Crimea. It's full of Russians, Russian-speaking ethnic Russians. There's no point in the Ukraine trying to pretend that they can take control of that. Now, it's over. Those options have gone. We have to sit around a table. We have to negotiate it in good faith, or we're just going to see more and more young Ukrainians die, and possibly even the rest of us dragged into a war which I don't think the people of America or the people of Western Europe actually want. This is shameful, and I would have a criminal investigation when all this is over. As most of you know, my work is very heavily independently research based. and I get my information from all over the world. It would help if you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, because the more subscribers I have, the more likely it is that international independent research institutes will share their material with me. It's most helpful, and then of course I automatically share it with you. So surprise, won't cost you anything. Thank you very much.